while everybody's sort of joining, just want to let you know, thank you for coming to our Master Machine Learning GA for Insights That Matter. I'm Dave Dobes. I'm sort of the uh, informal, I mean, it's going to be run by Will and everybody else here and Christian, but I'm sort of the informal MC, business development over here at Project 3, and just want to let you know that if you like what you hear, don't like what you hear, love to hear from you, regardless of. And we would always love to, help you with any tasks that you might have and or conversations if you want to continue that past this. So please, reach out to me or the team afterwards. And I will be quiet from that point on, and I will let Christian or Will take over.
Beautiful. Thanks. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. So, yeah, again, I kind of want to echo Dave's sentiments there. Just, welcome to our webinar. Wanting to discuss the machine learning component of GA4, kind of demystify some of the nebulous nature of that, just so we can kind of establish an understanding of what it is, what we can do with it, and potentially kind of map uh, a kind of a trail for the future. And so I'm Will Tanner. I've been with Project 3 for a little. I think I'm coming up on my second year in various capacities as a data analyst, a conversion optimization consultant, and also been dabbling a little bit in project management. And with me today, I'm happy to have a good friend and colleague Christian Duke.
Howdy, folks. My name is Christian Duke. I live in Arizona and I've been at Project 3 for just over a year. I do analytics implementation as well as reporting and strategy, and then some basic project management. But I'm really excited to be talking to you today about Google Analytics 4 and how it differs from Universal, because even though we have a few years of GA4 on the market, it's been a big shift and it's hard for people to catch up.
Absolutely. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there,
No,
Christian.
you're good. Well, don't even sweat
Yeah.
it.
Well, so today, we just kind of give you a little bit of a rundown of what we're going to cover. We're going to kind of, give you kind of a brief introduction to GA4 machine learning and its features, talk a bit about the evolution of universal analytics to GA4, and then really delve into the GA4 machine learning capabilities, talk about how we can get the most out of those through how we set up events and the data structure. And then we're going to kind of walk you through how it works, how the machine learning works from an anomaly detection and predictive metrics. Talk a little bit more about getting the most out of the machine learning component, kind of walk you through building audience segments, that kind of thing. Go over a little bit of housekeeping on anomaly detection best practices, and then close up the presentation with talking about, customer data consent. And then, as I mentioned earlier, and for those who are a little bit later in joining, we are going to save all questions till the end. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. Definitely want to get to those and address those, and do what we can to help clarify some of the murky points for you there. And then we'll wrap up with some key takeaways and closing remarks. If that sounds good to you, we're gonna start this journey here. So, kind of an intro to the GA4 machine learning. It was part of Universal Analytics. Christian's going to cover that a bit more in depth. But things that we're going to talk to you about are primarily, the anomaly detection and the predictive analytics.
So Universal Analytics, it really relied on rule-based logic and really deterministic models. And it didn't have a way to change a lot of the out-of-the-box reporting. Um, In Universal, it was a session-based model. That's what all of the data was structured around, was on how a user engages in a particular session. It wasn't looking at users over time. It wasn't looking at users on like an individual action basis, but it was just this antiquated paradigm of like, X amount of time on the website without a delay out. So GA4, the shift to the way that the data is structured and the types of machine learning that's available to you is way more robust. UA did have some, like introductory machine learning stuff with the SMART goals and the enhanced commerce. Uh, But really, those were just like kind of two kindergarten levels of machine learning integration that Google had back with Universal. But GA4 is a way more robust and much more detailed framework.
Absolutely. I'm really glad that you brought that up, specifically with respect to the contrast between Universal Analytics and GA4. As you mentioned, it was very session based. It was very yeah, it was very like content specific, very device specific. But
Hmm.
what I love about GA4 is it's actually forcing a paradigm shift to focus directly on your customer. What their journey looks like, and what issues and whatnot that they're running into on their website. And we'll kind of cover a little bit more of that in the event structure. But so as Christian mentioned, with the machine learning component in Universal Analytics, they were just kind of dipping our toe into that, with the SMART goals and enhanced e-commerce. But with GA4, we're really starting to dip into like anomaly detection, the predictive metrics. Right now, a lot of the predictive metrics kind of hover around the e-commerce side of things. So I think I hope that in the near future we're going to kind of branch that out. So we're getting those predictive metrics for more, lead gen type companies where form fills and content consumption and whatnot are more, the overarching business objectives. But what's great about these is these are pretty crucial tools to identify gaps and kind of help us make a better on-site or on-app experience for our customers.
So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the advantages to GA4 is the more granular data tracking. And if you all remember in Universal, we had the event schema was category action label. And so you could have an interaction and then you had to pair category action and label in a way that captured as much data as you could with those three key value pairs. What changed about GA4 was they gave you a totally new event schema where with every event you could have 25 unique key value pairs and capture way more valuable data than you could with three key value pairs. And when you start structuring your data correctly and you utilize each of those, I mean, you don't have to always utilize everything, but you utilize a good amount of the data that Google provides to you, you get way, way more actual visibility into what users are doing across your site. But you got to be thinking big picture with how you're developing the schema itself. Another advantage to GA4 over Universal is just the cross-device tracking. With everybody in the world having a YouTube account, a Gmail account, uh, you know, numerous Google services on their iPad, their phone, sometimes even on your smartwatch. Google is able to stitch together user behavior across different sessions in a way that almost no other analytics platform can, and really give you like a real view of how your user is performing. And then the other great, thing about this is that it's asynchronous. So event-based tracking doesn't rely on the concept of a session, so it can track users on all of those different devices and then stitch them together in a way that's really cohesive that we lacked before. So in short, event-based tracking provides more detail in real time, flexible insights into users' behaviors, and especially is useful for multiple device engagement.
Absolutely. And to kind of piggyback off that, this actually segues really well into the anomaly detection component of GA4. So kind of to provide a little bit of understanding of how that works. I mean, machine learning isn't very much different than how we do our own anomaly detection. Basically we have we're fed a stream of data from which we can establish a baseline, a baseline of normalcy or what we can expect. After that, you're able to push that through the machine learning algorithm, and then it actually starts to learn from that and is able to detect and visualize the anomalies. And then, as more time goes on and as the machine learning algorithm is able to ingest and process larger amounts of incoming data, there's an auto adjustment and customizability factor that will actually refine this anomaly detection over time to start to understand the seasonality trends of your business, the micro business cycles of your business. It's a great tool that is only going to get better over time.
And that anomaly detection is pretty much hand in hand with their predictive metrics, in that it's doing the same thing, where basically Google now is listening to all of your data and it's just parameterizing it. It's starting to see, okay, across the board, this is how users engage with the site. And it identifies those key behaviors and patterns. And then it says, okay, so X interaction is highly valuable for users who are about to convert. And then, supposedly in your reports and insights section of Google, you can go in there and it'll provide to you, hey, in your user funnel, here's a really key step. So, as you're engaging with the machine learning, it's supposedly, it's supposed to help have improved accuracy over time, where the more data that it has and the more quality data that it has, the truer the insights are. Like Will said, it learns your market, your seasonality. Um, I mean, it's exciting about how fast we'll be able to go from data to insight to action with these tools.
No, great points there. And one thing that I'm actually really glad that you brought up is saying when you interact with your machine learning, because that's exactly what you need to do. Machine learning is only as good as the data that it's trained on, and a big part of getting the most out of your machine learning is interacting with it. It's helping it identify what are the most important data points for it to focus on. There's something called a supervised machine learning, and that's actually what's happening here. The machine learning algorithm is actually it needs you to tell it what to focus on so that it can begin to start to get more sensitive towards what's most important to your business.
Hmm. I think in the future, there will be a role called a prompt engineer, and your job will be how to ask AI and how to ask different tools the right question. So if you're telling your data, hey, this is the area that I care about, based on our inputs, it's going to be focusing on that. That's so fascinating.
Absolutely. Well, and with machine learning, I mean, what we know about, data is, the insights that you're going to get is all based on the quality of your data. So, garbage in, garbage out. So that's kind of where GA4 is also forcing another paradigm shift where we need to be much more intentional and much more thoughtful about how we are, collecting and processing our data. Getting the most out of our machine learning insights is going to require having clean, centralized data from which the machine algorithm can dive in and process the data and actually find those insights that we're looking for. And that's why it's so important to focus on the things that you would typically overlook, case sensitivity, making sure that we're structuring the incoming data into GA4 the way that they're requiring, that snake case. Because and to kind of pull back a little bit of the curtain there, now, if you ask any data scientist what they need to do before they run their data through a machine learning algorithm, is they're going to do a lot of data prep, a lot of data hygiene, a lot of data cleaning. And interestingly enough, the way that Google actually is requiring us to structure our event naming conventions, our event parameters, our user properties is the exact same. Using that lowercase snake case is the exact same a data scientist would transform their data to run it through their machine learning algorithm. So it's prepping us to have a more sophisticated approach to how we structure and collect our data. And that comes down to kind of, your naming conventions, your event names, your event parameters, your user properties, all those different custom dimensions. You're doing that because you're actually helping to train the GA4 machine learning algorithm on what to focus on, and you're providing just enough degree of separation from the different data points so that it can understand that those are all contextual data points of your user's customer journey. So consistent and intentional tagging, a clear measurement strategy going into your implementation, those will all help set you up for success in getting the most out of the GA4 machine learning component.
And what Will means by clear naming structure and taxonomy is if you were tomorrow to, get hit by a bus and somebody needed to take over your analytics implementation, they should be able to understand it. A stranger should be able to walk in and look at your key value pairs, look at your event names, and understand how it relates to your website. Because if you don't have data that actually makes sense, uh, then like what is necessarily a sign up, ban, or click? There's a lot of different signups on X number of websites. So being specific, being clear, and not being redundant in your naming is really important. And like you said, we're
Absolutely.
we're setting it up so that it can be processed by machine learning.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and what's great about the event parameters and user properties is it provides that those extra data points, those extra context clues from which the machine learning algorithm can give you those insights that you're looking for. So, and what's interesting is a lot of GA4 configurations that I've seen are still maintaining that rigid event category, event action, event label structure, and you're actually crippling your GA4 implementation. You're not giving it enough data points to differentiate. And so that's kind of what we mean here is we want to make sure that we're, giving it the right data that aligns with your business, your company's business objectives so that it can provide you the insights that you're looking for.
100%. And when you get those insights, it allows you to build segments. And that's really the whole point of so much of web measurement is to be able to segment your audience and to be able to remarket to them. Uh, whether you're in lead gen, hospitality, e-commerce, if you have a site, you want to target the right people to come to that. And in GA4, like these are just some of the different ways that you can segment out audiences and look at them. Uh, Will talked earlier about probability to churn or likelihood to convert. There's a handful of things inside of GA4 that were not available inside of Universal Analytics. But when you are appropriately segmenting your audiences and you're remarketing or you're remarketing effectively, it's saving you spend. Because how many times have you all purchased something and then you're getting retargeted for ads of something that you already purchased? It's so wasteful. That's money that's, burning up in the ether. So if you build a cohesive strategy and then you segment properly, it is the way to spend your money effectively, especially in hard economic times where there's a lot of our clients that are facing struggles and tightness in their budgets. And if you're maximizing ROI on marketing, like that's optimal way to fly.
Yep. Well, and those are all really great points, Christian. And it ties back to kind of what we said before that Google, well, GA4 is forcing us to focus on our customers. And if you are able to dig into the data and you're able to really understand your customer, you're not going to, really be wasting nearly as much money. It's
Mhm.
when you're setting up your GA4 with, all of the, pertinent event parameters and context points, it's going to make it a lot easier to build out these specific audiences for your specific business segments so that you can reach them when they need your product, and
Mhm.
and help it, but even before that, help put your product or your solution on their radar. So,
Mhm.
definitely want to, I don't think we can overemphasize how much we need to really start focusing more on our consumers, more on our customers, and less on the data in abstract. Because
Mhm.
data itself, it's a passive medium. It doesn't have any meaning until we give it meaning, until we come to it with questions. And so that's really what we need. We need more analysts. We need, more human-centric engagement with the data and keeping our customers in mind as we're really digging into the data so that we can make sure we understand them so that we can serve them better. So, kind of going back to switching gears and going back to the anomaly detection, this is where, having, analysts who really understand your business is going to be very, very helpful because anomaly detection, while you're training the machine learning algorithm, you need to provide it with that context. You need to help it understand what your business cycles are, when, your lulls in business are, what your micro business cycles are, what the seasonality is to your business. Helping you providing that context to the machine learning algorithm is what's going to help give you, those rich insights that you're looking for. And that's all going to come back to, understanding your business, understanding your customers, so that you can train the machine learning algorithm and get what you're looking for.
I've got a funny story about understanding context. When I had been out of college for a couple of years, not very long, I was young and eager and wanted to prove myself at work. And I logged in on Thanksgiving Day and just looked at the analytics for a couple of my clients, just to be like a overachiever. And I was freaked out when I saw all of their metrics across the site taking a nosedive. And I thought, oh my goodness, tracking must be broken. Like it's reporting that there's 75% less people here today than there were yesterday. And I went and I looked on the site and nothing was wrong. It's just people weren't going to the hospital or looking at hospital or booking appointments with their urologist on Thanksgiving Day. And if you understand year over year behavior and you understand that how humans interact with the thing, like Will said, data is contextual. Yeah, traffic was dropping by 75% that day, but it was not because something had gone wrong. It was because people were with their families.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great story in tying that context and tying the metadata that's not in your reports and can't reasonably be captured, and that's why the machine learning algorithm needs you to help train it. So great point. Thanks, Christian.
So, some of the impacts of data restriction in the future, it's going to be decided in court. And right now we have some legislation. We have GDPR, and then we've got CCPA in America. But CCPA is only specific to California. So I think over the next few years, we're going to continue to see legislation changes and different things passed. Uh, so we need to be forward thinking in the way that we're measuring things right now. And I think it's an ethical responsibility that we have as the people who are building out the tracking documents for a huge portion of the world and the people who are in it. I think we need to be very intentional about the things we track and the things that we don't track, and the types of questions we're able to ask and answer. Where uh, would you want this to be known about you is a good question to ask when you're building out like different things. So just keeping your customers' privacy as a really high priority, and then also giving them the ability to accept or reject tracking. Where I think that's something that's really, really important. Consent management across sites. Um, yeah.
Absolutely. No, no, those are very great points. And the thing is when when we step back, and we take off our business hat and we start to, view this through the lens of just the human experience, why wouldn't we want to respect our customers? Why wouldn't we want to respect their data? Why wouldn't we want to respect their dignity to, be able to decide what they want to do with their data that you're harvesting when they come to your website? I mean, I know it's a very hot topic and there's a lot of controversy around it, but when it comes back to, this paradigm shift of really focusing on your customer, their needs, their wants, their desires, really getting that 360 view of them. I mean, data consent is kind of a no-brainer. If you increase your transparency with your customers, they're going to trust you more. It's just a it's a self-fulfilling relationship. The more you respect them, the more that you value them, the more that can show that you understand them, the more likely they are to do business with you. They want to do business with they want to they need the solutions that you're offering. They just also need to feel that they're safe coming to your website and that they're not going to be exploited. So, kind of, I really want to, I've said it before, we can't overemphasize how important it is to have your customers at the forefront of your mind when it comes to your data strategy, because your data strategy informs everything else that you're going to do, your sales strategy, your marketing strategy, your operations strategy. So I think it's very important to, maintain that customer centric view, and not necessarily just from the point of growing your bottom line, but also from respecting them. And then, in the reciprocal way, that will help, grow your bottom line.
I think the core of that, Will, is as we respect their customer and create experiences that are non-exploitative, that
Mhm.
allow the customer to choose. Sure, if I give you my email, I'll give it a 15% coupon to check off or to check out, you know? Like there's a lot of ways that you can ethically source information from the client and get them to become a trusted return customer in ways that are not like gotcha systems or dark nudges or really exploitative. And I think as an industry, if we keep our ethics and uh, lead by our heart, I really think that's the way that we don't let the future become just machines mindlessly running stuff, but like
Mhm.
there's still people and humans behind all this interaction. And we
Yeah,
don't forget that.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, definitely don't want to beat a dead horse here, but all great points. But that, if there's anything that we take away here, please respect your customers. Not saying that you're not, obviously, but definitely want to make sure that that's a high business priority moving forward. So this is kind of the time where we want to, answer your questions, fill in any of them. What would you like to understand about GA4 and machine learning? I did see a couple of questions come through in the chat that definitely want to address those. Um, so Darren, but segments don't really exist anymore like they used to. They don't have historical data. You have to preset them up, except in the Explore tab, unless you know a workaround. Uh, Darren, perhaps could we actually unmute Darren for a minute and have him talk a little bit more about this, if he's willing to kind of explain here.
Yeah, I guess my point is the old GA, you could create a segment and it would apply historically. So if you said, I want to see the number of visitors that viewed X page and created a segment, it would give you that and it would give you that looking back to, all time. Currently, you don't have that option except in the Explore tab to create a tag segment of someone like they viewed X page. Um, to get audiences, you actually, right, you have to set them up ahead of time to say, I want to create an audience of people who will view this page, and your audience starts building from that date forward. So, I mean, I was wondering if you had any workaround on that. I was just lamenting the loss of, segments because that was a really powerful tool that we used a lot. That unfortunately, again, you can only use it in the Explore tab, and it doesn't apply to like when you're exporting your data to Looker Studio or anything like that. So I was curious if you guys had any workarounds or thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I definitely know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's kind of been one of the bigger headaches of the transition from Universal Analytics to GA4 is not having that segment. And I absolutely agree. It's definitely something that was incredibly valuable from a Universal Analytics standpoint. And I mean there are like there's comparisons and whatnot that you can do, but it's really not the same thing. And so honestly, in terms of a workaround, I don't think that there is really that a workaround yet in terms of like the out of the box functionality with GA4. But I do hope that that is something that is on Google's roadmap, because I absolutely agree. The use of like segments were wildly helpful. Um, yeah.
And now it is like setting up a filter that's only forward looking and you can't apply to any retroactive data. So it is a pain in the butt. Jonathan asks, how should small business with limited data approach machine learning in GA? Um, the amount of data that you provide to the algorithm will be highly determinative to the value that you can extract for it. So if you're a business that has relatively low site traffic, your machine learning insights aren't going to be that great. It takes high volume and high engagement in order to really start to get in there and poke around. But as Will and I said it a few times throughout the class, um, the more you engage with your tool, the more queries you provide, that lets the system know, okay, this is the stuff that's important and this is of interest. So you'll give it the KPIs and the areas to focus on where it'll be able to return information for your insights.
Well, and this is a really great question because I actually like to think of machine learning a lot like an engine to a car. Without gas, it's not going anywhere. So it's kind of the same thing with data. It needs a large amount of data in order to refine its predictions. And so, there's a lot of ways that we could recommend or consult to, increase the traffic coming through on your website, focusing on like SEO efforts where we can take a dive on and look into your technical SEO, your on-page SEO, so that we can, increase your ranking in Google, so that can drive, more people to your site. We can, start to really dig into, some paid campaigns so that we can bring more people to your website that way. So there's a lot of different ways to, to increase the amount of traffic coming to your website, but it is unfortunate that smaller businesses, that don't have larger budgets to really invest in that, they won't get as much out of the machine learning component. But if you are in that situation and you're looking for ways to do that, we'd be happy to work with you on creating a strategy to increase that site traffic, so we can learn a bit more about your customers and help you get to where you're wanting to go. Any other questions? Okay. From Greta, I know GA4 has an auditor tool that provides an anomaly detection. Where else can you access some of these predictive metrics? So where I typically go is I actually typically go to the home screen in GA. That's typically where you'll find a lot of the insights, a lot of the anomaly detections, a lot of like the predictive metrics. And if you don't know where that is, I would actually jump to the screen, but I can't right now because I'm sharing this presentation. But I'd be happy to, if we need to set up some time and kind of walk you through where you can find all those things. So can kind of personalize your experience and answer your questions there. But yeah, that's typically where I will look for it. You'll have some, it usually will kind of hang out in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, where you can actually modify reports and stuff like that. You'll see some of those little insights there, but where you'll typically find those is on that home page. Christian,
Nope,
is there anything else?
you're 100% right. And you can also, from the homepage, there's a View Insights link that'll appear under your insights and recommendations, and you can go in there and customize those. But just right on the homepage, they're making this front and center and really easy to access.
Yeah, and they're asking, like, if you'll notice those insights, they're actually asking for your feedback. So like, is this helpful? Is this relevant? Whatnot. When you actually interact with that, know that you're actually training the machine learning algorithm. So definitely want to be intentional with that, because as soon as you tell it that yes, this was helpful, it'll start focusing on that. So yeah, definitely want to train. It's a lot like Netflix when they ask you, do you not like this?
Mhm.
Do you like this? Do you love this? You're actually training the algorithm to give you, what you're looking for. It's the exact same thing in GA4. Any other questions?
Well, I think we talk about key takeaways and then give
Hmm.
people back a little bit more of their morning.
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh wow, I just went too far. So key takeaways, obviously we've kind of covered a lot of ground here. There's machine learning is a very powerful tool for making, data-driven decisions for insight mining, for, cutting down your time to insight, which is amazing. And we definitely want to help you, on your journey to make better sense of your GA4 data. And if you are still using one of those antiquated, not necessarily antiquated, that's such a polarizing word. If you're still
But
using
it's
that,
true. It's an
it's true.
old, outdated system. It is antiquated. That meets the definition.
Yeah. If you are still dealing with that and you're running into a lot of frustration with that, we would love to work with you to help, devise a more comprehensive, more, appropriate measurement strategy to help you get the most out of your GA4 data.
Because ultimately, GA4, guys, it is the future. It's here. We're not switching back to universal. And the pipe dream of integrating machine learning and artificial intelligence into your whole data ecosystem is basically these five things. It's predictive analytics that are actually correct and, within a margin of error that you can make decisions based on those. It's automated insights that the system itself is telling you. It's a potentially real-time site personalization. There's so much in the future with machine learning, especially with A/B testing and making it so that every user's experience is unique and is tailored to them. So if we can shift our minds from session-based tracking, event category action label to now we're looking at a user as an aggregate and we're taking every individual interaction and we're building this profile with a ton of little data points rather than like this kind of very rigid framework that we had before. And as you do everything that we talked about today, as you continue to query and you interact with your report suites, it'll get smarter over time and it'll give you insights that you would not have been able to find on your own.
Absolutely. And we definitely don't want to like invalidate your frustrations and concern with GA4. It is absolutely different from universal analytics. It absolutely is. But what we are strongly suggesting is that you lean into the discomfort. This is a paradigm shift. It's a different way of collecting data. It's a different way of looking at data. And so I think we can, safely say that if you're willing to kind of let go a little bit of what we had with universal analytics and dive into the possibility of what GA4 can provide, and doing that with an informed strategy where your customer and your business objectives are front and center in that strategy, you're going to be able to get what, you're going to be able to get your money's worth, or a very, substantial return on your investment by investing in your data strategy. And if
Thank you,
that's
everybody, for
it, that's
coming.
it. Thanks so much for coming.
Hey, thank you everyone for coming. If you've got other questions, please feel free to reach out to Will, Chris, myself, please, or anybody you know from Project 3. We're happy to help you continue this conversation and help you with your GA4 or any other analytics needs you might have. So thanks for joining us today. We will make this video available at some point in time, I believe. And thanks.
Have a
Thanks,
great day,
everybody.
everybody. Cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Great to see you.